Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel Déjà-Vu Gamer. I have thought about starting a channel many times before and after many considerations I finally decided to go ahead. Just a quick word on the music in these videos. Jonathan Gear, who is the composer of the All Boys soundtrack, allowed me to use his songs in my videos, in my YouTube videos, so thanks to him. I love what he does. So why this name, will you ask? Well, because this sensation of déjà vu is quite universal and it has the same meaning in French, in English and in many different countries. Likewise, it is a very precise notion and I like precision. It is a sensation one can feel when one analyzes events, this sensation that history repeats itself, and it happens in video games history too. So let me introduce myself quickly. I am 35 years old and I have been playing video games since the age of about 10-11 years old, with a frequency that has varied over the years. I'll go back a little bit later on my journey as a gamer, but first a little explanation about the form of these videos. You will find that I will not be filming myself, at least initially. I prefer the message above all else, but it may evolve as the channel grows. So some of you may know me from the Panzer Dragoon World community, which I am the founder of. Others may discover the channel via other ways, and I will be delighted as well. So let's go back a bit on my relationship to video games since my childhood. I, like many people of my generations, have initially been exposed to video games with the Nintendo Game Boy. And the first Nintendo home console, the NES. Although I have many fond memories of the first NES, it was especially the Game Boy that gave me my first big emotions as a gamer, especially thanks to games like Final Fantasy Adventure, Seiken Densetsu in Japan, and also Zelda Link's Awakening. However, at that time, I didn't have a very extensive game library, and lending games with friends was essential if we wanted to play other games. So it was only a few years later, and actually late in its life cycle, that I discovered the SEGA Saturn. I keep excellent memories of the console, and I had a great time with my brothers playing Sega Rally Championship, Fighter Megamix or Dragon Ball Z. I also discovered my first solo games in real 3D like Tomb Raider and the incredible series Panzer Dragoon. So first with the second episode, Spy, and then with the third title, Panzer Dragoon Saga. I actually didn't play the original game at the time, but it was only a few years later that I played it. It was also many years later, with the hindsight and maturity, that I better grasped the dimension of the series' artistic direction. So to conclude on my love for the Panzer Dragoon series, or at least for this first video, because it is possible that I come back to that topic in a more detailed video, it is indeed the unique RPG of the series named Panzer Dragoon Saga that is my favorite game. Because it really made me aware of my interest in this genre. The teenager I was at the time was only beginning to understand the emotions that video games could arouse. Music, story, lore and gameplay really fascinated me at the time. It was an unprecedented experience, and in my opinion this is a kind of experience that paved the way for the games soon to become open worlds we know today, with their flaws obviously. So, Panzer Dragoon Saga was a linear game, but with large explorable areas in full 3D. I always projected myself much better in that game than in 2D games or in fake 3D with pre-calculated backgrounds such as Final Fantasy VII. Don't take it personally. At the time, most of my friends owned the PlayStation 1, but fortunately for me, not all of them, because otherwise I would never have known Saga, since I had borrowed the game from a friend. Nevertheless, the fate of the Saturn turned me off somewhat as I became a new high school student. I then turned to PCs. Indeed, this platform had a dual use as a workstation and as a mean of playing games, which helped us, me and my brothers, to convince the parents to adopt this machine. It was quite easy at the time to crack games, and the penniless teenager I was at this time was all the more delighted. I spent many hours on games like Diablo 1, Diablo 2 and its expansions, Half-Life, etc. Then, with the advent of the internet, my first games were games like Counter-Strike or some online games such as The Forthcoming. Now that I think about it, a forthcoming port on Switch would please me a lot, even if my hopes are slim. So tell me in the comments if you have known and played The Forthcoming. I have also been a player and game master on Metin 2. It was a free-to-play game that I discovered after I played O-Game. So it's another free-to-play game that you play in your web browser. Subsequently, and with the end of my studies, I greatly reduced my consumption of video games. I continue to play PC games like Diablo 3 or Assassin's Creed games when they're released once a year. So, in fact, I missed all generations of consoles as well as their exclusives between the SEGA Saturn and the Nintendo Switch. Indeed, I continue to keep myself informed about video game news, especially via the gaming section of a French newspaper called Le Monde. It was there that I read an article about Breath of the Wild and the Switch in March 2017. And so, on a whim, I pre-ordered the Switch online with a Pro controller, and I was able to find one of the last copies of Breath of the Wild on the day of its release in a retail store. I was lucky when I think about it, but I was able to enjoy the adventure as early as the 3rd of March 2017. The first time I discovered a console and a game on the day of their release, and also my first console in 20 years. And what an enchantment this adventure was. It is true that during the first hour I sometimes thought that the hype of the game was a little bit, let's say, overhyped, but quickly I understood where it came from and I totally immersed myself in this adventure. Where many open worlds had failed until then, Breath of the Wild plunges us into a world without taking us by the hand, with a map describing the topography of Hyrule, but without sprinkling all those markers that we were used to in games like Far Cry. Here, each peregrination is often rewarded, climbing a mountain to reach its summit, exploring a crevasse or a valley, often leads to a treasure or to meet a mini-boss, and the atmosphere of the game is so consistent. In fact, I had thought of selling my Switch after Zelda, but I quickly changed my mind. Breath of the Wild being quite long, I started to use the console in its different configuration, docked, in portable mode or in tabletop mode. This feeling of exploration, of living a great adventure, reminded me of Panzer Dragoon saga, and I could not help but thinking of what a modern version of the series could be, in RPG format and with the flexibility of the Switch. After Zelda, I started to discover a whole new world of YouTubers talking about the console, since I was looking for the next game to play on Switch. And that's how I built my physical collection of Switch games. In fact, this may be the subject of a later video, we shall see. Starting a new generation is interesting because there are still few games and some developers know how to get out at the right time. I, who usually played big games on PC, started playing indie games and varying my habits. I was thus able to discover titles with unique artistic directions, although they were made with quite modest budgets. Titles that played particularly well on this flexible platform in portable mode and in docked mode. And actually, that's how I came across the trailer of another big exclusive, but this time on a competitor's console, namely Horizon Zero Dawn on PlayStation 4. This gameplay trailer simply blown me away, and that's how I bought my second console in 20 years, a little more than 4 months after the Switch. I've since played a lot of games on PS4 Pro, especially its superb exclusives: Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, Spider-Man, Uncharted 4, Detroit Become Human, Last Guardian, Shadow of the Colossus, the remake, and The Order 1886, which I enjoyed a lot. The Switch is still my console of heart, because it allows me to play RPG wherever I want. Much has already been said about the console, and I'm not going to expand much further. Indeed, the platform is less powerful than the competition, but the concessions are present in any project. The technical constraints and public prices are at the heart of the development of these machines that are consoles. The same goes for you when mounting a PC. Your budget will always be your limit, and you will always find someone who can afford a more powerful PC than yours. So I hope that the audience that follows me will be aware of this. So I recently acquired an Xbox One X during a nice sale, so I now own each current console, and I'm starting to work on my backlog of exclusive Xbox games, especially the Gear series for now, and I'm almost done with it. So you may be wondering what this channel is going to be. Well, I'm not sure yet, but I plan to do game reviews and or impressions if I can't finish the game. Reflections on themes, including a series of videos that I would like to start soon. Covering the news could also be a way of developing the channel. I may be making a video on my 10 favorite Switch indie games, as well as another showing my collection of Switch and PS4 physical games. So this is the beginning of an adventure. I will offer content in both French and English languages, and it will double my workload to actually produce the same content. But I want to try to do this. It's a challenge. So I need you guys. Feel free to comment under the video about your expectations, to share and like if you indeed like this. As you can imagine, these actions are particularly critical during the launch of a channel. I hope to offer you some new content very soon. I think it will be a game that I just finished recently, namely The Last Guardian. Also could follow my impressions on Death Stranding, Batman Arkham Knight. Don't hesitate to follow me on Twitter, or I will sometimes comment on other topics such as cinema. I also put links under this video for the Instagram and Facebook pages. I have another hobby, which is photography, so I will share the links to my website and Instagram. If you like that, feel free to support me. So thank you for today, and hope to see you soon on the channel. Bye.